So here is a model of the city of Jerusalem as it was in the time of Jesus. Jesus came to Jerusalem often to teach and to pray and to do miracles. And it was here in Jerusalem that Jesus gave himself up for us. It's here that he had the Last Supper. It's here that he died and rose from the dead and later ascended into heaven just outside the city. And at Pentecost, the Holy Spirit came to the disciples in the upper room, we call it the cenacle, where Jesus ate his last meal. Already set up for you today are the walls. The walls are all named underneath, the letters of the alphabet that matches the letter here of the wall. So you can work out exactly where each piece goes. Sometimes they're angled so that they can sit nicely next to their adjoining parts. The city walls are already up. When you're doing this yourselves, children, you will be able to assemble the whole thing. But I'm just demonstrating to you today. So, we have the city walls. Jerusalem was a city surrounded by walls to protect it from danger. There was also a wall around the temple itself, because the temple was a very important place where the Jewish people came to worship God and to pray. You have, in the walls of Jerusalem, you have the Golden Gate. That's the gate that Jesus himself would have passed through on Palm Sunday. Then you have different buildings. One of the buildings is over here. It's the cenacle. The cenacle is in this part of the city, and it's where Jesus held the Last Supper. While they were there, Jesus blessed the bread and broke it and told his disciples that it was his body. And then he took the wine and he offered it and he gave it to his disciples and saying, "Take this and drink, it is my blood, offered up for you." Then another place to know about, we don't have a piece of wood for it, but it's the Garden of Gethsemane here and the Mount of Olives. The Garden of Gethsemane was on the Mountain of Olives. And that's where Jesus went to pray on that night before he was arrested. You have the house of Caiaphas, quite a grand house, quite close to where the room of the Last Supper was, the house of the Last Supper. This is called the house of Caiaphas. That's where the Jewish leaders met when they were deciding what to do about Jesus. They asked, "What should we do? This man is performing many miracles, and if we let him continue doing these things, everyone's going to believe in him. Then the Romans will come and take away our temple and our nation." And Caiaphas, whose house this was, the high priest, said, "Don't you understand? It's better that one man die for the people than the whole nation be destroyed." He kind of made a prophecy. So Jesus went from here to the Garden of Gethsemane. Then he was arrested and taken to the house of Caiaphas. And they questioned him there, and they treated him very badly there. They told lies about him, and they agreed that he had to die. And Caiaphas sent Jesus over to Pontius Pilate. And Pontius Pilate lived and worked in the Antonia fortress. You'll always find the names underneath the buildings. The Antonia fortress, that's where Pilate lived. Now, Pilate was a Roman leader in Jerusalem, And this fortress was actually the largest, tallest building in the entire city. And it was actually built into the walls of the city so that Pilate could look down and see everything that was going on. It was right next to the wall of the temple. Pilate then talked to Jesus there, and Pilate thought there was nothing wrong, that Jesus didn't deserve to die. So he decided to send Jesus to King Herod, who was the king of Judea. And that's when we come to Herod's palace. That's the gate to the palace. Here's Herod's palace, one of them. There was another palace too. This was one of his palaces, and he used another one too called the Hasmonean Palace. And I'm not sure if we know which of these two places Jesus was taken to. I don't think we really know that. But anyway, this was one of the palaces. The King Herod had always wanted to meet Jesus and to see his miracles. So Herod asked Jesus questions, and Jesus did not answer him at all. He didn't perform any miracle either. So King Herod sent Jesus back to Pilate in the Antonia fortress. And it was here that Pilate told the people that he saw nothing wrong with Jesus, nothing worthy of death. But the Jewish leaders insisted that he should die. And so Pilate reluctantly agreed, and he handed him over and gave Jesus a cross to carry to Calvary. So from there, Jesus went through the judgment gate, which is just here, and he went to the place that he would die, Calvary. It's here. That's the place where Jesus died after being on the cross for 3 hours. And after that, he was laid in a tomb quite close to where he was crucified. And this is the tomb here. That's where he was buried. And then 3 days after that, of course, you know that he came to life. This is where you would actually light a little candle, which I don't have with me at this moment. That's one presentation of the city of Jerusalem explaining the events of Holy Week. You could just do an introduction when you're simply telling the children where the things are in a simpler way, and you also introduce some other items like the pool of Bethesda and the pool of Siloam. This is the pool of Bethesda. It goes here. Jesus performed miracles there. And the pool of Siloam, and there are miracles related to that pool as well. This is actually the building of the temple itself, and it sits there. These stairs are to mark the descent from the upper city to the lower city. I place them there. Some people like to place them here. Either will do. And then, so you can introduce it simply this way, using these cards, not with a booklet, not explaining the last days of Jesus in such detail. Here are the city walls that surrounded the city to keep it safe. This is the cenacle where Jesus and his disciples celebrated their Passover meal. This is the Garden of Olives, where Jesus prayed, and while he was praying, the religious leaders sent soldiers to arrest him from there. This is the palace of Caiaphas, the house of Caiaphas, who was the Jewish leader at the time. Here is the Antonia fortress. This is one of King Herod's palaces. He was the king of the the Jews, the official king of the Jews, and King Herod had always wanted to meet Jesus, and he told the people that he could see nothing wrong with Jesus and sent him back to Pilate. This is the Hasmonean Palace, which is another palace of King Herod. It might have been there that he met with him, we don't quite know. Here's Calvary. When Jesus got there, he was put on the cross between two thieves. And this is the tomb where Jesus was buried after he died. So these labels are for the main events of Holy Week. You also have then these pictures that the children can, when they're familiar with the places, they'll put these quite naturally where they happened. Right? This is a judgment by Pilate. This is just generally about Jerusalem. There are a few of those. There are various pictures, sometimes more than one picture for the event that took place, the Last Supper, and Jesus carrying his cross. Kind of goes there because he would have come through this way. Here's another one, actually, when the children are older, they'll know about this story. Jesus meets the disciples on their way to Emmaus. And the map tells you Emmaus is in this direction. This is Judas kissing Jesus, and so on. The different pictures, the children will enjoy very much putting those things into place. And then they will turn to this many times. It's one of the choice activities then that can take place many times through the year, and they will love doing it. And if sometimes children, boys in particular, need a little bit of encouragement to engage in a choice, things like this map really draws them. And also the magnet maps, which I've introduced in another session, will be something you can turn them towards when perhaps they can't quite settle and don't quite know what they want to do next.